And it's Ken Kraetzer for Sons of American Legion Radio in New York City today. Have a chance to visit with filmmaker Chris Martini. And Chris has produced a very interesting video about two veterans. Chris, good to be with you today.
Great to be here, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Now, you have produced a video about two veterans, a father and son. The father was a Vietnam-era veteran. The son was a more recent Iraq veteran. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to make the movie.
Sure. Firstly, I have family that served. My grandfather was a World War II veteran, and my uncle was a Vietnam veteran. My brother and I are involved with veterans issues. He's an actor. But originally, I edited a documentary on Gulf War syndrome that had to do with Gulf War veterans, and it deeply affected me. And I think at that time, I wasn't as involved in what was going on with the world, but after seeing these veterans and hearing their stories, I became acutely aware of not only what was going on in the world, but also what was going on with our veterans when they were coming home. And the thing that I learned about this documentary was that, not enough was being done. So with all this information in my head, the story was just, saturated in my mind. I spent 2 weeks and I put together a screenplay about a veteran coming home with PTSD, but also a host of physical ailments and different medical conditions. But the thing that makes the story so unique is that it's really about a family of veterans. The father is a Vietnam veteran with also with PTSD and Agent Orange exposure. He actually, when the son comes home, he sees a lymphoma on the dad's neck, and that the dad received in Vietnam from Agent Orange. So it's really about father and son veterans taking care of each other, helping each other heal. And his brother is still deployed overseas. So what the veterans have said about this movie is that, it really tells the multi-generational story of what soldiers returning from battle go through. And they say it really hits the points.
Well, certainly Agent Orange has had such a terrible impact on the veterans community from its use in the Vietnam conflict. Issues now, work being done to try to cover Navy veterans who are on ships who gained unfortunate exposure to Agent Orange from equipment and other sources. What did you learn about how devastating this Agent Orange caused series of cancers has been?
Gulf War syndrome or depleted uranium or the burn pits or, any of these things that are really hard to prove if they're service related, are still, they still affect our veterans coming home. It's not just about PTSD and TBI. There's so many other things that can happen to you overseas. And the one thing that I realize is, it's great what just happened with the Blue Water Navy veterans receiving justice after all these years, but it shouldn't take 50 years for this to happen. That's the biggest takeaway for me from that.
Absolutely, and certainly the character that you play in the movie had served in Iraq and came back with PTSD, also a physical injury. What did you learn from playing the son in this movie?
Well, it was a surreal experience, to say the least, because not only did I write it and direct it, but I also acted in it. So I really had to take myself through the roller coaster of emotions that one might experience coming home with, losing buddies on the battlefield, coming home with, physical injuries, psychological injuries, and also unexplained injuries. It really made me quite aware of what our soldiers might be experiencing. But it really turned into a mission of mine beyond this movie to just raise awareness about these issues. And my brother's doing it too. He just made a movie. So we're both profoundly moved by this story and telling the story of veterans.
Yes, and a movie called The Trooper is available to be seen by veterans organizations across the country. There have been many showings. And tell us a little bit, what will the public learn by watching this movie, the story of two veterans from two different generations?
Well, I think there's a lot of movies about veterans coming home. The thing that's different about Trooper is that we made it for very little money, so we were able to do whatever we wanted with the movie. There was nobody telling us, oh, you have to have these elements to make it commercial. So the veterans that have seen this movie from all wars have said that we really push all the right buttons. We really cover all the bases with this, because we had no obligation, other than to tell the story we wanted to tell. So it's a low down, mean, gritty, dark, but also hopeful movie about a soldier coming back from war.
Absolutely. And again, maybe mention how veterans organizations who would like to show the movie to their members or also to a public gathering, how is the movie being made available?
Sure. It's actually quite a story, because we shot this in 2008 and then we had distribution. And we screened it for all these veteran groups, like the 101st Airborne and the Gulf War Reunion in Dallas, and for veteran groups at John Jay and NYU, all these groups. And, so the movie was out there, it was available. We pulled it from our distributor because they weren't doing what we wanted to with the movie. And we felt like there was nobody better to push this movie than us. So we recently set up a deal with the real-time exchange theaters. So it's going to be on bases in theaters soon. So we're working on that now. The film is on Amazon. It's on Vimeo On Demand, and we're working on other platforms now. But we are also working with veteran organizations to host screenings. So if anyone wishes to do that, we're working with certain veteran organizations to show the movie and help them in their goals with what they need to do to help veterans. So anyone interested can contact me through my website, which is MartiniProductions.com.
Very good. And Chris, you've had a long career in the movie production business. Maybe just tell us a little bit about your career.
Sure. I come from a family of filmmakers. My stepfather is an actor and director. My brother's an actor. My sister's a costume designer. We've all worked in the film industry. My mom is the odd one out. She was a parole officer, but we kind of grew up in the movies, making movies, and I went to NYU Film School. I made films there, and then I worked in the industry doing every different position, kind of working my way up. And, now I'm just, I have a production company in New York, and I make my own movies in my own time.
Very good. Chris Martini, the producer of a terrific story of two veterans, a trooper, about two veterans, a father and son from two generations of military service, tells a very important story. Chris, great to visit with you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Ken.
Pleasure. This is Ken Kraetzer for Sons of American Legion Radio in New York City.